Welcome to the first developer video for indie developer MangaPage. I'm Jonathan, MP Developer A in the forum if you're there.
And I'm Glenn, MP Developer B at the forum.
If you're also there.
They're
which is kind of important.
hopefully there.
Well, we're MangaPage, and the whole point of these videos will be to basically show you the process of making a video game from beginning to end. The current game we're going to be working on is PreVa EX. Before we get into that, basically we've been making video games since
2005.
2005, and we basically went into it no real experience whatsoever.
We started learning on 3D Game Studio Engine.
Yeah.
First video game was PreVa, which we started in 2005, I believe.
First video game was actually a puzzle game, but you can't tell you about that.
A test stuff. But the first actual video game was PreVa, and we started that one. Technically, it started in late 2005, which we released a tech demo, and then it stayed on until about 2008 when we released it in on June the 6th.
Which, if you want an idea of how games can change, anybody who played the PreVa tech demo, I might put a video up for it sometime. It's very different.
Why don't we just put up the tech demo?
Yeah, we could just put up the tech demo. We might do that.
Say here if you want to play this.
We'll put up a download link or something for it, but yeah, you'll see the huge difference and how it was crappy, but then got a little bit better before we released it.
Right.
But got actually way better, but
yeah,
by comparison anyway. Well, we have made, as he said, we've been, since I said, been here since 2005, and we have made 2 video games, and PreVa was our first. If you want to read more about the experiences of PreVa, you can read it on the games page.
Yeah. On
MangaPage. It'll explain what's going on with PreVa. We didn't really know what we were doing. We just made a video game. It was pieced together, glue and popsicle sticks. But it was pieced together. But it was still a decent game. We still had some fans of it. And now that it's free, we had even more fans coming in on it, which is pretty good.
And we also, right after we had finished PreVa, actually started work that, if I'm thinking correctly, it was that fall or right before fall, we started work on Kino.
Yeah,
Kino 1.
Down, yeah. And we're at the stage we are now, bro. Then.
Right, and we started with doing our story and things like that. We kind of knew what Kino was going to be. Whenever we started most of the stuff on it, we just kind of pieced together more or less the story and stuff like that. We weren't 100% sure about gameplay, which we ended up testing a few different ways and released eventually Kino in 2009.
Which I wish we could have done developer videos on that one, because that one definitely changed face a few times.
Yeah.
It started off, if no one really understands what the name's about, because probably nobody does. If anyone's ever played the old I think it's Kino, not Kino.
No, Juno First.
But yeah, but it's Konami. I think
Konami game, yeah.
The Juno First, which was what the original play style of the game was, and that's where the name came from. We're like, it'd be cool. I love this game. It'd be cool to make a game like that.
And it was kind of actually a play on the name Juno First, Kino 1.
Yeah, Kino 1. It's a joke. Well, when we started actually the development of it, it started off that way, but the gameplay just wasn't very good, so it ended up just turning into something completely different. It doesn't really resemble where the name came from at all.
Actually, we were planning on infinite levels,
Yeah, originally it was just going to be an infinite arcade game.
But it didn't work too well. Yeah. It played horribly, and we went from that.
And the art direction started off being 80s graphics, not even really anime looking, and then it went to me trying to almost like 60s anime, like Astro Boy and kind of stuff, and he was like, I don't want any shiny hair. It's like, I don't want any shiny heads like Astro Boy. So we settled on 70s and 80s style.
And then actually, eventually, it got redrawn again.
Yeah, it did get redrawn from my original drawing, because I already done the character designs. I liked it, but then we just like, we
wanted higher quality looking stuff.
Yeah, and I think it was worth it. But back to the subject at hand. We are working on a new PreVa, which is technically not so much a new PreVa as a complete remake.
It's a retelling completely.
Yeah, retelling.
Think of the new Evangelion movies compared to old Evangelion story.
Yeah, it's complete remake, ground up. We're taking some ideas from the original, but mainly it has a lot of new stuff in it.
Right, and why would we make it? We actually, we knew back whenever we were working on PreVa, we knew it had a lot of potential in the story, and it's actually kind of a predecessor for something that we plan to do in the future, but
which we can't say anything.
We won't. Yeah, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah, as far as it goes.
Won't tell you anymore.
Yeah.
But we started with that one, and it was initially going to be a tech demo. Well, we ended up making it into a video game. The story had a lot of potential in there, and we didn't want to throw away a lot of that potential. And then I started getting insane about wanting to remake a new PreVa, and finally got him to it.
He convinced me. I originally just wanted to add some more to the original PreVa and do some reworking on it. But then I looked at it and was like, that's not worth doing it on Game Studio. And he was all like, hey,
we started looking at Torque whenever Torque released. The Torque Game Engine Advance actually had been out for a while, and we were actually originally going to call it PreVa Torqued.
Yeah, PreVa Torqued or PreVa Redux.
Yeah, we've had so many.
Yeah, we've had a lot of different ideas.
But
and originally it was just going to be a multiplayer ladder matches, which basically got eliminated from the original PreVa. Was going to be a multiplayer component where you could play ladder matches against AI, and you can even team up, or you can play against real players. But we weren't able to really do any real multiplayer with Game Studio.
Sadly, I believe
and then
multiplayer's a little slow.
After he was talking about that, I was like, that's kind of a waste of time, because if nobody played the original PreVa before they play this one, they wouldn't get it. And he was like, well, let's just remake the PreVa. I was like, dude.
I wanted to remake the whole story.
I was like, I don't know about remake PreVa.
I wanted the whole PreVa.
I was like, I don't want to remake it. Then I got to thinking, maybe if we tweaked it and added more and did some serious editing, I was like, I got on board then. Yeah.
From moving from wanting to remake the story to right now, PreVa EX is in a stage where we are planning on having multiple chapters of PreVa. We're not just planning on releasing just the main story. We actually want to build on to it and lead on to more of PreVa storylines. So
anyone who played the original, if you read what it says at the beginning, it's kind of, war's been going on for a little while. You're going into it, and you play during it, but the war doesn't actually end. It's just like a small piece. Well, we're going to go 3 full chapters, as he said, and some characters are, as in chapters, we're talking about actual individual video games as a chapter.
But being all, if things go as planned, there'll probably just be more or less updates to it. Think of episodic kind of stuff,
basically,
where it's Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and they can all play actually, in our game anyway, they'll all be able to play on the original PreVa, but we plan on that.
Any of this is subject to change at any time. Let's get that on the table. This is in the concept stage, but this is what is planned. And if anything changes, you'll find out about it in the video.
Right. And actually, we plan on putting it all together so you can actually see the whole timeline. We also plan on having some past storyline stuff in there and things like that. So for real fans, or for people who actually...
You will be able to revisit a lot of what happened. It'll just be a little different.
It's really for people who have already seen PreVa and go, well, this has got a lot of potential to it. But it's also for the people who have not seen PreVa and are starting over to see a new PreVa. It's actually going to start you from the beginning.
And the reason why we basically stopped supporting the original PreVa is because it's retelling the story and setting up a timeline, and some of the stuff that happened in the original one doesn't fit. So it's gotten changed a little bit. But on that note, there are some nice returns that you should be happy about. The General is coming back.
Yeah.
Which his name is General Cartwright. I'm not sure. I think that was in the.
That was in
the General Cartwright, and Alyssa Saito is coming back.
Right, the controller.
But the real twist on it is the commander that you played as the commander.
Do you want to give the names, or you just want to? We can just.
Well, they are subject to change. I got most of them.
I can remember a few of them.
But the commander will have a face and he will have a name. Right now, his name is Daniel Hayes.
Right.
And he is a character. And in the original PreVa, you had squad mates, but they were also basically nameless. And, that wasn't very good. We're not for a story. Yeah. We won't mention any major story stuff, but... his team, you'll actually have 2 characters that are in-game characters. One is Terry Kennedy
and Miguel
Rodriguez. Yeah, and those are your 2 guys. They'll be backing you up. They'll be part of your story.
Right.
And Alyssa will actually have more to do in the story. She'll actually be a proper mission controller, and we're going to try to work it to where she's telling you things that are actually going on in the mission in real time. If we can.
And we plan on this time having a lot more interactive characters, and being able to show more emotion in the characters and actually having 3D modeled characters.
Fully 3D modeled anime style characters. We're even going for cell shading on this one.
Right.
We're working toward it, but art direction is one of those things that doesn't settle until you've done a lot of testing, till you get what you want.
Right.
But we are planning an actual cell shaded anime game, because that's something that some of the people, the original, they were like, you know, it's anime action. Well, it doesn't look very anime.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, I guess it could be.
And PreVa was called Anime Stylized Mecha Action,
which he hated. That was my idea.
But and we kind of, I mean, we wanted to say that it was anime styled and stuff.
Which the characters were.
But the actual look of the game, you could say it was anime, as in the sense of, you know, the characters are anime, like Ghost in the Shell-ish kind of.
Gritty looking.
But the problem was we went a little too gritty, a little too trying to be realistic.
Too realistic, yeah. The art direction changed too many times in that game. But like, it was our first game, what do you expect?
Right.
Well, other big news is about the way this game is going to be done. The commander's not the main character, oddly enough. He's one of the main characters. You will actually get to play both sides of the conflict. You'll get to play as the UEG, which is the United Earth Government, or the UEF, the United Earth Forces.
United Forces being the UEG's main force.
Also, you'll get to play as the IAN now. It was the IAA in the first game, and there was a lot of jokes about how can you have an allied alliance? Doesn't make any sense.
Independent allied alliance,
and
right.
Also, the voice actress...
And that kind of ticked me a little bit.
The voice actress that did Alyssa in the first game, Tanya Morris, which is actually my sister, believe it or not, my eldest sister, she stumbled on that line.
Yeah.
She's like, how can you say IAA really, really fast? And they're like, yeah, that needs to change. And we got to make a little more sense. They are now the IAN, the Independent Allied Nations, which makes a whole lot more sense.
It makes a lot more sense than an allied alliance.
Yeah, I can't help it.
I know.
It sounds like something from Voltron. Go Lion.
Right.
I couldn't help that. But with the addition to two sides, there'll also be basically a mirrored version for the opposite side. They will have a controller. We have a name for her and a name for the general character. We're not sure which one we're going to give to who.
Yeah.
I should go ahead and give that away. Your general character, which I think she might be a major. We're going to do something for the IAN side, is going to be a woman, actually.
Right.
So that's not too bad. And the character for the that will be the commander for that side will be from South Africa. His name is Delmar, I believe it is?
Delmar, yeah.
So we haven't really developed their side of the story yet. I'm still writing the UEG side right now. So
it's because technically...
it'll be Delmar, Ja, and Sean.
Technically, Daniels, a.k.a. the commander from the original PreVa, is... His story is the straight-on kind of retelling of what happened in the original PreVa.
At least in the first chapter.
Right. Where
the first chapter is basically what his story is from the original
where,
PreVa,
you know, the IAA came in, stole mechs, you have to more or less try and get them back, but we're reworking a lot of that stuff because a lot of the stuff from the original PreVa actually... Some of the missions and stuff like that were just, go in, kill people, blow up some buildings or whatever, and then get out. And that's kind of just repetitive. We want something a little more recent, a little more, I wouldn't say next gen.
Yeah. Well, to add to that, to change it up, we are planning for you to be able to pilot inside of a VA, which is a versatile armor if you haven't played the original. If you haven't, it's free, go play it.
Right.
But you also will be on foot.
Yeah, we plan on having
and on foot. And I know a lot of people are probably cringing at that and go, oh, on foot multiplayer games are horrible. Well, believe it or not, we're going to develop the on foot for the alpha first.
We won't.
It could be a standalone first person shooter.
What we're aiming to do is the on foot needs to be designed in such a way that it's classic first-person shooter styled, but
where it's so good you don't even have to have mechs to enjoy it.
But where like if you're on foot or if you're in a mech, you have two different play styles. Your controls will more or less stay the same mostly.
Because of how the VAs move.
But we plan on having the on foot being just as much attention to detail as the full-size mechs, because we actually plan on developing it from a person's perspective. So that way we actually get all of our scale done from the beginning, and whenever we can actually pop in and run around with a little guy and see, you know, how big mechs are and things like that.
We're designing the world from the human scale and up. Instead of designing mechs first, then design things that are human, we're going human and up. So you can run around the same level at, you know, human scale as you can a VA scale, which will be very interesting to play that way.
And we plan on actually using
which will be very good multiplayer.
We actually plan on using some real life kind of things to actually help us get speeds done, to get
actual real life physics, as in the running speed of a human being will be a base speed of them actually running across the world. In proper measurements, as in how many meters can they run in a certain amount of time.
And we plan to try and get as much stuff where it'll work between the transition between mechs and humans, so that it doesn't look so crappy, like where, you know, a lot of times if you have on foot kind of stuff and
they make the mechs
big
look
mechs,
slow looking,
and they try to make the mechs fall and ragdoll and stuff, and they're just ragdolling way too slow, and it just takes too much out of it. Well, not us. We're planning on actually getting our weights and balances done properly,
and using shaders to show the effect of, you know, how much bigger they are, like using good depth of field and things like that to really make it look like they're really up there.
Maybe some fish eyes whenever you're in
some motion blurs for larger mechs with that distances. Things like that. We'll work with that. That will be part of the development. Another thing, for the story, since we are MangaPage, I've decided, now I'm saying this now, but this could change. If we're in development and I go, that was a good idea, but I'm going to scrap it. I don't want to, but I'm planning on releasing a manga with each chapter of the game that basically tells the story, but tells it from a manga perspective, not a game perspective. Meaning there could be more in there. It could explain a few things that we're not able to explain in the game, and it's basically a companion to it. And that could be interesting, because that way, and they're going to be free along with it, so you can read the story and follow what's going on. So if you were playing the game and going, that didn't make a whole lot of sense in one area, you could actually read the manga, and it could be elaborate a little bit more. But I've never done a manga before, so I don't know how it's going to be.
We're working on that, because
I'm still debating if I'm going to go traditional manga or using something like the Blade engine, I think is what it's called, which basically is a electronic manga that you can go through, set your speeds and stuff like that. I'll show something about that probably later.
But we actually, whenever we're working on this one, we're trying to, as much as we can, bring out the anime part of it, because our first PreVa really, like we already mentioned, didn't really have too much actual anime-esque stuff in it. We had the sounds, we had the characters, but we didn't actually fully bring out the anime style of it. We really want to with this one.
Cell shading and everything.
Actually, using some nice 2D
and I am
styled shadowing and things.
I am planning on hand painting the textures for this video game. It's going to be something I've never really done before, but hey, that's game development.
If you haven't seen on Facebook, he has a stylus.
I got a stylus. I've been practicing with an open canvas kind of software where I'm actually able to paint. I think it's My Paint. It's free. Anybody who's looking for something that's a good painting program, it is free and open source.
And it's got some nice brushes and custom brushes.
But I'm probably going to use it. I am going to paint every single texture in the game, so it's going to have an anime feel. All the background textures are going to be painted, the mechs are going to be painted, characters will actually be painted. I am really going to put some extra artwork in this one.
And we're trying to get those done as good as we can. We'll even reference to some other video games to try and get some good design done.
Another big thing that we really wanted to do in the original PreVa, and matter of fact, we're trying to do before we even design the single player aspect, multiplayer.
Yeah, because the original PreVa, with 3D Game Studio Engine, we had a little bit of slowdowns a lot trying to play around with some of it.
And never really got it working properly. I've never seen anybody really getting it working properly. No, not to down the engine.
Not to down the 3D Game Studio Engine. It's a good engine to learn on. So if you're actually, if you're planning on starting on game development, I recommend trying out the 3D Game Studio Engine. It's a good place to start.
But that's one of the reasons why we're going with Torque 3D, though. Anybody who knows about the origins of Torque, if you're a PC gamer, you've probably heard of Tribes, the old multiplayer game Tribes. It was a multiplayer-only game. There was no single-player component, really. Well, that Torque really is based off of that engine. It is really designed to be a multiplayer engine.
Which back then,
that's how we're going to be designing
that's how
PreVa.
Torque started, was actually with Jeff Tunnell was actually one of the leaders of it. I don't know if you know any of his works from old school games. He actually had a studio called Crystal Dynamics. He did things like Incredible Machine and stuff like that. Jeff Tunnell actually helped make Torque, and I believe he actually, I think it was Crystal Dynamics or something like that, actually released the first Tribes. I can't remember.
Yeah, they did. That's what I was saying. That's what the engine was made for. Was
right. I can't remember which company it was, but I believe.
Which means that the next PreVa will be basically designed with multiplayer first. It's going to be multiplayer first before we even add any AI, which is artificial intelligence for anybody that doesn't know.
Right.
But that means that we'll be playing around first, against each other and testing the game that way. Because we're actually gonna. The multiplayer is really the most important component of the next one. For us, gameplay-wise, we're going to have like I said, me and him have been saying, a big story, but the gameplay will be designed to be really good multiplayer gameplay to where there's a good give and take kind of a system to where skills will really pay off.
Right.
And that will transfer over to single player as well because it'll be the exact same movement, same tweaking, all that kind of stuff.
And don't worry, we'll actually get videos. These developer videos are for that stuff. For us to actually
we'll show it all
update you and say, this is how the multiplayer is going and this is how this is going. So we actually want to update you on all that.
Alright, modes. Multiplayer multiplayer modes.
We plan on having a few multiplayer modes, actually.
A few off the top of the head. Kind of like a survival base defense mode to where you're supposed to hold a base. And in multiplayer, this will not be so in single player, at least not right now, in the current plans. In multiplayer, you can get in and out of your VA and go on foot as a human being anytime you want. It's basically going to be a playground of a level. There'll be turrets you can get into, like Battlefield.
The Battlefield, yeah. That's what I was going to say.
Battlefield, but with different kind of physics and stuff like that. And VAs, while large and heavily armored, will have vulnerable joints and parts where literally on-foot people with rockets that are a good shot can take down a VA with a few well-placed shots.
Yeah, we plan that actually in the
But
game.
at the same time, you're also basically a blood bag.
We plan
the VA could take you out rather quickly if you're noticed.
To say that, we do actually plan on having in
tanks,
the game,
helicopters, jeeps.
we plan on having actually at least more than one way of playing the actual game in difficulty settings and in kind of a realism
we're really
style
going to work
mode.
on difficulty settings.
And we plan on, like, what the original PreVa didn't have: blowing shields off, blowing guns off,
and
blowing arms,
and expanding
legs.
into that. Current idea behind that system is basically how a mech would really be designed. You have an exoskeleton underneath it, kind of. Well, a center skeleton, not exoskeleton. A center skeleton, like a human being, kind of. And literally putting armor plates on it. And those are what you can actually blow off. And you can actually realistically take a mech apart. But we're going to do a difficulty setting to where we kind of want to please everybody. Because too many games make you play the game the developers want you to play instead of the game you want to play. We're thinking about making a difficulty system to where the easiest mode plays like the original PreVa. Any hit anywhere on your VA will do the same kind of damage, but there's
or possibly even having a realistic click.
Yeah.
Kind of an option.
Yeah, and then we're going to have realistic kind of options as well, which difficulty is not always going to be based on difficulty, because difficulty will be based on how much damage you receive, how much damage you deal out, things like that. But in realistic mode, or realism mode, we don't have a name for it yet, you can literally take a mech apart.
Right.
And that will make for some very interesting multiplayer, because you can have some serious dueling systems going
which
on,
we plan
we'll
on.
elaborate on that later.
Right, which we actually plan on having things like, where depending on how much damage your mech still takes, even if it's only like arms, arms,
he won't be like a human. The only kill shot, the serious kill shot, is a cockpit shot, because that's where the humans are.
But at the same time, if so much of you is disabled, you will die instantly.
Yeah.
We plan on having, since everything's centered around the core, we plan on having things like that. But
basically a system in play that is the structural integrity of your mech. Since you are electronics and you are basically just steel and wires,
right,
you can only take a certain amount of damage before your system's shut down.
right,
but how much that damage is will be dependent on what kind of damage you take. Like, you can lose your head and still be moving, lose an arm and still be moving. If you lose both your arms, depending on difficulty, you know, depending on how we were originally planning on having you not be able to fight, but we might in a hard difficulty.
A lot of this stuff. The reason why you may see us go back and forth a little bit on this,
it's still in concept.
We're still more or less talking about this kind of stuff
until it's actually being made and being played.
Whenever we actually play it, we will tell you, okay, finally, this is.
But these are the ideas we have going toward.
Right.
That we are going to be trying to implement in as much as possible.
But we do plan on the first thing actually being developed for our systems after the actual initial gameplay is we actually plan on doing the things like the realistic style settings. We actually plan on testing those as soon as gameplay and
those will be part of the actual design of the mechs in the game.
So for a long time you might see one mech doing everything, or maybe two, but we actually plan to get everything working on a whole scale before we actually start doing every individual mech.
Now, one of the major new things though is we're completely redoing the combat system. The original PreVa played kind of like, if you've ever played the Journey to Jaburo, or Jabrow, depending on who you ask, games for PlayStation 2, that one,
I still say
Lost War Chronicles, it was kind of like that idea where, you know, you just switch to a weapon, you have to use that weapon, then you switch to your melee, blah, blah, blah. Well, in the new one, we're planning on doing a distance-based combat system to where when you're in a VA, it does not feel like you're on foot running around with a normal gun. Your internal, you know, computer systems or whatever in the VA are actually targeting things. You will have sub-weapons. Sub-weapons are something we originally designed for the first PreVa, but could never get them functioning, and they kind of made your mech overkill, and we didn't really develop them well enough.
Yeah, so we kind of only went with just simply a melee and a main weapon, and switching between weapons.
But in this one, we're actually going to set up the sub-weapon and melee system will be connected for most mechs, but not all. Some mechs will, like the original PreVa, go into a melee mode, which we're even thinking about doing things where there's a sacrifice system where if you're carrying a main weapon and your VA is equipped with dual beam sabers, which we're planning on having them come out of the wrist most likely, you can literally throw a weapon.
Yeah, we plan on you possibly being able to throw your
weapon.
weapon.
And pull out two beam sabers, and it'll increase your speed, because everything's going to be based on weight of weapons, weight of whatever you're carrying.
We might have a button each for throwing a weapon and throwing a shield, actually, to help you get your speed down.
That stuff's still pretty in concept, because that's going to have to how you play, how it's going to feel. But that's something else I guess I should mention with me saying that is, with the whole weights and new physics system, VAs, what you put on them, which you will be able to customize layouts, whatever you put on them will affect their weight, their movement, their evading speed, by everything you put on them. So you really will be able to make a pretty well done custom VA. And that's really going to come into play when you're actually doing some of the more deeper combat. Like I was saying, the sub-weapon melee system, it's based on a distance. Think of it like this. Every mech will have a radius around them that is a melee distance. And you'll have your sub-weapon button or melee button will be the same button. And if you're outside the radius, you will fire your sub-weapons, which will be auto-locking, meaning you don't have to aim with your crosshair. That means you can literally be aiming your main weapon and your sub-weapons will be firing at whoever's targeting on your screen. Some will actually be able to fire at multiple enemies, so you can be targeted on 3 guys with your sub-weapon, while your main weapon's nailing one dude. You can fire your sub-weapon and it's hitting other ones. But if you enter that radius, that melee radius, you will immediately lock onto the closest guy in that radius, and you will be able to melee him.
Right, if you hit the button. To keep from any kind of questions on that, actually, we plan on if you have a melee weapon that you can just carry around, and I don't know, we may even have where most anybody can use a melee weapon, maybe. But
basically, everybody will have a melee ability, even if it's just punching.
Yeah, and so you'll more or less everybody will be able to kind of switch to a melee mode, kind of.
Cool.
Right, and to kind of, you know, delve into that, we actually the sub weapon button is just used whenever you're using that one. That's what he's talking about.
If you have a main gun, it's your sub weapon buttons. If you get close, you'll do a melee of some kind, but if you actually pull out melee weapons as your main weapons,
melee.
That's your regular melee. You can use your sub weapons.
And your sub weapons will always be used.
We might implement a system to where if you do get in the melee, you know, radius, and you use the melee button, you might be able to do a special kind of attack. Maybe
right.
That's still concept.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, the other cool system that a lot of people complained about the original PreVa is your shield was like a god shield. It could not be destroyed. Well, we tried originally to attach it, but we had trouble with our attaching system.
Right.
Was odd.
Which in the end, we actually, if we would have known about something,
but we would have taken some serious recoding, and we were like, it's too late.
Once again, that's the reason why PreVa was released when it was, is because we were taking. We would have taken too much extra time, and we kind of
had to take another year more.
We had already worked on PreVa for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And the tech demo was released in about 2006. That's when we actually started on the serious PreVa. So the reason why it was released the way it was is because we had kind of worked too much on PreVa and we're ready to get it out.
Yeah, we're ready to get out.
Which was probably a stupid mistake, but still.
But the new shield system.
The new shield system.
The new shield system will be based off of the ability to. It can take most any damage, and damage to your shield will be done as heat. Because it has a cooling system to keep the metal cool, and as long as the metal keeps cool, it avoids real damage to it. Now, if you keep getting hit, you'll have a meter that goes up for your heat. And as long as you back off or evade, it'll cool back down on its own. And most of the time, you have a quick cooling system if you back off real quick. Well, if it gets too hot, the system breaks.
Right.
And then you now have health on your shield. And that means when that goes to 0, you lose your shield. Right. You can still use your arm to block, because I'm probably going to do the blocking system to always cover the cockpit, considering cockpits will be the headshots for VAs.
Right.
If you take somebody's cockpit out, the VA's gone. No matter if it's in perfect condition, it can't operate without a human.
And we plan on possibly with that shield system, since it'll cool down as as it's taking hits while that system's still in play. We plan on, since we do actually plan on having water areas, we do actually plan on you being able to fight in the water.
Or if you're even in a snow area, will affect
you. Or even on land, or in
you can take more hits in the snow area because your shield will cool fast.
We actually plan
you land in water.
We actually plan on whenever you land in water, it will cool down quicker. It actually should almost. It might even be instantaneous.
We might even do it with boosters as well, possibly.
Right.
But yeah, you hit water, it's going to steam and it'll immediately cool down.
Speaking of which, with boosters, we plan on having multiple systems now. We actually, instead of how the original...
I'm still designing them to where those boosters are, though.
Right, but our original design, which if you haven't played PreVa, once again, go ahead and play if you want to. It's completely free. But our original design is a hold down and your boosters continuously go down so you don't actually jump.
A lot of people had trouble with that system.
And we actually had the problem with where, you could tap boost a lot and
you could
just fly over the level. Yeah. Well, this time we plan on actually have jump boosting, where it's technically...
It's clicks, clicks, clicks. You have a certain amount.
An actual jump.
Think of it like a power bar in a fighting game almost.
We actually plan on your boosters being to where, instead of it being a continuous boost all the time, which you'll be able to do that possibly too, but it will go down really fast.
Yeah, it's basically meant to do jumps, and the jumps will actually be a boost.
Unless you're in space, then the boosters will be a straight
in space it'll be a straight up evading.
Right, and we actually plan on them being where it's kind of a launch forward instead of so much of a keeping you up in the air, which we plan on still kind of using similar to our original energy system, except we actually plan on having where whenever you boost and energy is drained after a certain while, then you have to wait for your energy to go back up, which I believe we had in the original PreVa as well, if you went to 0 or something like that. But actually with this one we plan on having the same kind of recharging system, but depending on how much you actually use of your boost will depend on how quick it actually will recharge back and things like that. So we plan on a lot better of a boosting system.
Talking about just overall systems and things we're talking about, we are really going to have some serious destructible things in the game.
We plan on it.
Everything's going to be, it's all going to be realistically destructible. As in a mech, the only way you can really take him out quickly is a cockpit shot. Human players will have headshots. Even like gas on trucks, like gas tanks on a truck will be a kill zone. Chop helicopters, will have cockpits with their pilots kill zones. All that will be very important because we're going to have fully destructible levels, fully destructible VAs. I want you to really feel like you're a mech. When you're in a city, you should really be destroying some stuff.
And this time around, we actually plan on having a lot of our stuff physics-based. So
basically all of it.
So whenever you actually do have an explosion go off next to a human or any other things that are there, it actually should give a good impact, a nice look to it, and force people out of the way, push them away. If anybody's close enough, they die.
Basically, it should react the way it does in the real world. So if you think, well, maybe I could do that. If you can do it in the real world, we're going to try to make it where you can do it in the game, as well as good as possible.
While we're still going to go with a lot more anime physics and a lot more anime style.
There'll be very anime action, but believable anime action.
Right, because actually,
we're going to keep it balanced between that arcadey feel.
Because actually, a lot of animes still, while having a superficial way of doing things, they still base it on real life stuff.
Think Gundam. Think Gundam, where they lose an arm but they can still fight. They never are without a system they can't fight with. We're not going to have it where you don't have a system to fight with. If you get that low, you will literally, your health's gone. That's when your VA will shut down.
Which we plan. We want to have where instead of having too much arcade-based play where it's just, you get shot anywhere, it doesn't really matter kind of stuff.
Which will be an option.
Which might be an option.
Should be an easy.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of options, play options. You can really set the game up to play how you want. You can make it extremely difficult or extremely easy.
Right, and you can kind of jump back between an arcade style and a realistic style. Well, we plan on, instead of having it too much arcade style and too much Mech Warrior Simish,
but enough to please some of those kind of fans.
We want to mix those two. We want to, instead of just throwing it all one way, we want to kind of mix what we have and work with anime stuff, anime ways of doing things, and then also mix it in with. And this
may sound like almost impossible to do, but here's how I plan on doing it. If you didn't watch our original intro video to the MangaPage forums and new community website, we are releasing the alpha of this game for free. From the first ability we have to play something, we're going to release that.
Which means those multiplayer stuff. As soon as we get multiplayer videos out, you can play it.
And that's what we want. We want you to play it and say, this isn't sim-like enough, or this is too arcadey. It needs to be one or the other. That we want to hear that. That's going to help us develop the systems that people are actually going to want to play. So that will be out as soon as we are able to do it. We are working on it now. Matter of fact, this week in March is coming. Yeah, it's this week. Yeah. This video is going to be up probably. We are starting right now in the actual engine side of it. We're going to start developing. I'm starting modeling. He's starting base coding.
I'm about to start learning the actual engine.
Because that's something we must say. We've never used the Torque engine, so we're going to have to learn its features. We know how to make a video game. Don't get worried. We know how to do it. We just have to learn how to do it in this engine, which I'm also going to be using new 3D software. I'm going to be using Blender. Before I used a proprietary modeling program that came with Game Studio. But now we'll be using Blender. So anybody that knows anything about Blender, hey, give me some tips or good tools or good plugins I could use.
He could use some tutorials or whatever.
Same with him. He's going to be using TorqueScript and most likely C++ because we're getting the full source code of Torque. Which is one of the reasons why we're going with Torque. We were looking at Unity. I know since this is a developer video, there's probably developers watching this. Anyone who knows, there will be.
I'm going to put this up.
Anybody who knows about Unity, we looked at Unity, we liked Unity, but for the price of Unity and what you got is great. But we wanted that source code.
Right.
And Torque just went through a major situation, but it came out good for everyone. They've released it for only like $100. To get the highest version of Unity was what, like 1,000 something?
The regular non-source version of Unity is $1,500.
Yeah, that's a little bit pricey. It's still not full source
either. If we
either.
wanted source,
yeah,
we would have been paying a 3-figure thing.
Yeah, very large.
So we.
But with Torque, with their relaunch as Garage Games again, they have the new Torque 3D engine, full source code, which is fantastic. That means we wanted something that if we're going to make PreVa on it, we want to be able to do with it what we want to do with it. Because for the guys at the AMECA forum, the AMECA UK, co.uk, I believe is what their thing is.
It is.
They wanted to mod the original PreVa so bad. We let those guys know. We'll let you know in the video. We are designing the new PreVa from the get-go to be 100% mod friendly.
Right.
We are setting it up for modding. Technically, we're modding on it.
The way we want to set it up, here's the way we plan to set it up. Once again, things can change. We can't stress that enough because, you know, development and stuff. But we actually plan to have, I plan on whenever base code for mechs, for everything is done, I plan to kind of have that as a base.
A base script.
That is the game, and what we will do is kind of what, you know, what modders do, where a
you have
modder
a base
will,
script, you mod to make different kind of VAs.
Like for instance, if I write it out into complete stuff and actually put it into source.
I'm sorry if this is geek heavy, but this is a developer video. You might as well get used to this kind of stuff.
I might put it into source and actually, where for us, what we will more or less do is it's already coded in, but we actually, you know, put in a new mech, and we actually will kind of do a modders thing.
Set modifiers to make that mech the kind of mech it's supposed to be.
Kind of setting speeds,
which sets it up in layman's terms for modders. You know, if you want to make a Gundam mod. Dare I say it, a Gundam mod. I'm not telling you to make a Gundam mod, but it would be fantastic on this game.
Those are the magic words for a lot of us mech fans.
But it means that if you wanted to model a Gundam, make a Gundam, all you need to know is node points when creating the model. You need to know animation names, whatever. Matter of fact, you could probably just use the straight up animations if you wanted to. But that means all you got to do is take that base script he's talking about and say, okay, well, this mech can boost at this speed. His, you know, reload time is this with this kind of a weapon. That kind of stuff will be base script that every VA will have. So it'll make it very moddable. And we're also planning on having it to where to add levels, it's as simple as dropping into a level. It'll automatically be in the menu. Very simple way to add stuff. We're going to try our best as we're developing, like I said, to make it more and more mod friendly as we go. Whatever tools we make, we'll release, you know, in the SDK for modding.
As a matter of fact, instead of just saying mod friendly, we actually straight up plan on having, if things go as we plan on actually, I plan on coding up an actual level editor. If you've played like a lot of
I forgot about
RTSs,
in-game
real-time strategy games for those that don't know.
If you don't know where you watch this,
exactly. But if you have ever used an RTS editor, you kind of place something in, and I don't know, some of them like
you have
maybe
a list
Supreme Commander or something.
Resources you can place in place.
You might be able to
this
move
kind of
them
building,
up and
this,
down.
that, yeah.
Well, I plan on actually coding the stuff in, and anything that's in our game, any assets or whatever that we put in, will be able to be placed in, and you just kind of move them around. I'm planning on possibly having it where they kind of auto level to the ground unless you move them up or down or something like that. But
and actually, AI will already recognize what it is to avoid it, to shoot it, whatever. And
I plan on actually having the full level editor, if not possibly the Torque editor, because they also say that you can possibly use their editor.
We'll look into that as we're going into licensing for the things. Well, one of the reasons why I was talking about the system, which is one of the things we really want to do, is a lot of people make mods and they're huge and they're, you know, you have to download lots of new texture and stuff like that, and you also have to really know what you're doing. Well, this system, it will be a quick, easy system to where people that don't know much about anything making mods can make a level, place mechs, make a whole scenario, and we're going to try for this. We're not sure how we're going to do it exactly yet. We are working on it. But since you're using all in-game assets, we're going to see if we can make a way where you to save it to where the only thing you have to put on the internet for someone else to play it will be the save file. That basically when you put it on your system...
Unless you add extra assets, yes.
But if you're using nothing but what is in your game already that's shipped with it, then all they need is that small file. They can place it there and they can play the scenario, which should be very interesting.
Which, if everything falls into place
a lot of console
games
to do that. So.
If everything falls into place as we want to, this means that if you want to mod PreVa, should be able to make PreVa from just a first-person shooter only game to to like PreVa is to completely nothing but, I mean, just anything that's available in PreVa, you should be able to just use in any way you want to, even possibly being able to do modifiable objectives and things like that.
It depends on how deep that system ends up going, because like so we're still in concept, but well, that's basically it. I think
more or less.
But like we said at the beginning, all this is subject to change at any time, and if it does change, we'll tell you that it's changed, why it changed, why the system didn't work. In game development, sometimes you have good ideas, and they're great ideas on paper. When you start playing them, you go, this just doesn't play right, it doesn't feel right.
Well, I will say this, though, to actually let you know, if most of you don't already know, game development takes a very long time.
We are planning at least 2 years at the minimum.
At the minimum for
to complete the
PreVa
first chapter.
To be released. For the first chapter of PreVa to actually be released.
But to say that,
however, the reason why we are doing all of this stuff, we plan on having stuff for the community for you to be able to play as soon as it's released, because that means that if like in 5, 6, 7, whatever, how many months it takes for us to get an actual base thing going and for us to actually get something releasable, that means that from then you really start kind of playing PreVa before we're actually done.
Yeah.
So you kind of play PreVa from the very early alpha
You help
beginning
develop
stage.
the game you want to play at the end.
And we plan on doing these videos to show you the new features, to also, we'll probably even put up the new features.
And go in-depth as possible. If you're actually a game developer and you want to know how games are made, you've really never really made a game, or if you're interested in becoming a game developer, that's what these are there for, or you're just interested in game development itself. We're showing you how a game, at least here at MangaPage, is made from the get-go. And let's just say it, MangaPage is me and him right now. This is us. Yeah, this is us. We are the developers. That's the reason why it can take us some time to make these games, but we do put some time into them when we make them.
But that's also the reason why, and we can't stress it enough, that's the reason why we actually want to release this stuff for public viewing, for people to play it, because that means from the beginning, even as we're going, you know what, it's going to take us like a year and a half to finish this game still, before we're actually releasing it. We can still say, but if you want to play what we already have and what we're updating as we get more and more done into it, go ahead and, go to our website, download the game. Which we don't have up now, but
which will be.
It will be whenever.
And here's the other important point of the reason why we're designing it moddable and the way we're doing it is once we've completed the original first chapter of the game and the actual base game, since all that'll already be made, it'll be much easier for us to complete the next 2 chapters that'll finish out the game. It's going to be a trilogy of games as we've planned it. There might even be more side stuff, and just because there's 3 main chunks to the game, we're probably going to still release multiplayer updates, multiplayer levels, even scenarios. Dare I say it, in multiplayer we are planning co-op scenarios, which people should think that's kind of interesting. We are planning on doing that, and if we come up with a cool idea between me and him, we'll go, that's a cool idea. We'll make it. We'll just release it, possibly even for free, most likely for free.
And not only that, if we
I might even release a manga to go with it.
If we actually end up doing things the way that we want to in PreVa, the reason why we want to make it so moddable is because, actually, that means that a game will last longer, for one thing. That also means that whenever we release new chapters, if we want to release updates to the actual base of the entire video game,
we could up the entire graphics in one update.
We could. We could actually. That means that if we turn out and doing things that we want to, where things are moddable, you just kind of add on to it, where even our chapters are kind of like mods of our own video game. That means that everybody would be able to get the base update, and then you don't have to have the next one that come out just to get the new assets, just to get the new shaders.
A good example is anyone who's played the Half-Life 2 episodes. You had Half-Life 2, which for the time graphics looked pretty good. You know, came out in 2004 or 5, somewhere in there.
2004.
Then episode 1 came out and they added, you know, HDR and beautiful lighting, stuff like that. Well, that wasn't updated into the first one.
Right.
And then you had episode 2, which had, you know, more sprite effects, gore effects, things like that, cooler graphics. But that also did not go back in. Well, with ours, we're designing it to where there's a base PreVa, and whenever we do an update, the entire thing gets the update.
Right.
Which, if it goes as planned, as knock on wood, as planned, that will be a pretty cool system. That means that when we reach the end, you can go back and play the original, and it's just as updated as the one you just played, compared to being as old or outdated.
And that also means that for people who just bought the first version, for any engine updates or anything that we do, or any, you know, base PreVa, I should say, updates, that would mean that even if you didn't buy the latest chapters, if you got the original PreVa and we released a patch, because these chapters would probably include those kind of patches or whatever, but if you actually had even just the base PreVa, and we release a free patch that updates the graphics, that updates textures, this, that, whatever, it actually, everybody would get those updates. Everybody who from the beginning, if you got the, if you got the latest, or if you didn't, you still had the updated graphics, meaning that everybody's still all playing on the same page. So somebody who's playing the last episode can still play with people who have the original
Let's
game.
say we are gamers, we're not jerks. We're not a big company, we're not a big corporate entity. We really are designing this game for people to enjoy it. We want to make money off of it, but, you know, if you just bought the base game, you have the first chapter, and you're like, that story kind of sucks, I can care less about it, but I love the multiplayer. Well, as we come out with updates, you will get all those updates.
Right.
You won't have, you know, the content from the other 2 chapters.
Right. You won't have, like...
But any free multiplayer stuff that's just across the board multiplayer, you can get it. Just the original game.
Multiplayer, visual updates, maybe even audio updates. Whatever we actually do, if we update the base of PreVa, any textures, anything, everybody will have to get that. It'll be free downloads. So the only kind of stuff that you really won't get is, as he was saying, are the things that you kind of have to buy the next version to get. Which is like, for instance, you know, in Chapter 2, let's just say somebody comes out with a new mech. Well, you can't get that unless you actually
Which, I should say that about the story, is right now it's planned to happen over a certain time period, meaning technology advances during the time period. I'm just going to say that, I'm not giving away too much story, is... mechs will increase and get better and better before the end, before a major. I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah, well,
but a matter of fact, let's just end the video here. Let's just say, you know,
let's just stop it here.
I just put the hand on the camera. All right, that's enough of that. But seriously, that's the. Let's just say that's our first developer video. This is just the concept. Other ones will be actually showing development stages and what we are doing. Like I'll probably do a video quickly about texturing and concept art and what the importance of that is and stuff like that. Well. That's the end of our first development video.
Right.
This video is probably already way too long. If you've watched this far in, you love MangaPage. You should be in the forum.
Or you're interested in PreVa.
You're interested in PreVa or just game development. Whatever your reason for it, you know, maybe you need to go out and do something else.
Right.
You've been sitting for too long.
Anyway, just that's more or less it. We kind of
look out for more updates on it.
We plan to release more videos in the future.
These videos will be not exactly regular. We could release more than one in a month, or it could be a whole month or less more.
Yeah, there could be some not in a month. But the thing is that we plan on having, whenever we actually have updates for you.
If you're a part of the community, you know.
Right, and we plan on having updates as we get them.
All right.
So
yeah, let's end the video. That's too long. All right. Well, be on the lookout for new updates and the next development video.
Videos.
Yeah, and it's gonna be some interesting things coming.
All right.
All right. Bye.